Hello, thank you everybody for being with me. I hope you enjoyed your excursions at lunchtime, being involved in all the wonderful arts and culture that Paris has to offer. So my name is Pigalle, and I have started my own online school of experience design, and I'm very, very passionate about experience design. And yesterday we heard a lot of conversations and a lot of other speakers talking about the power and importance of providing experiences in museums and galleries. So I'm going to talk about how to take complex content and turn it into immersive experiences to reach target audiences. And I'm going to be doing it through the particular lens of working with artists and scientists. So we're all here today as programmers, communicators, leaders of organizations, because what we all wish for, we're all united in wanting to move our audiences from being one-time visitors who just come and passively view the objects or the items and then leave. And what we're really trying to do with them is actually move them emotionally so that they form unforgettable memories, and we can capture their hearts and minds so that we can start to build long-term relationships with them. And that ultimately unites us all in that same goal. So I'm going to share with you today my 4 top tips in order to create emotionally charged, unforgettable experiences. And these are based on 15 years working with leading national organisations, science organisations, culture centres, museums, galleries throughout the UK. And it will be so that hopefully your audiences can also leave with these wonderful expressions from these lovely ladies at one of my festival programmes. And hopefully none of the images you see today will look like typical museum or science events at all. So my first tip is about understanding the audience, and a lot of people talked about that yesterday, and I'm really passionate about that. Audience comes first, because it's really easy to assume that we know the audience, and we really don't. And so my first tip is really to go beyond demographics into psychographics, and I have lots of methods for that. And really, in order to do that, is to discover what their internal motivations are. Because once we can really understand what their internal motivations are, we can then start to take our content, which often lives in one side, which we all care about, but the public, our audiences, are on the other side, very busy in their own world, very busy with their own aspirations, dreams, and challenges that they're facing. And there's this huge gap between content and audience. And if we understand them well and we can identify those internal motivations, we can use that to find the meaningful connections in the content to form a bridge, to bring them together and close that gap. And the third one is to embrace collaborations. Collaborations are a really exciting way to engage and entice audiences to come to us. And I'll be sharing this in particular through artist and scientist collaborations. And then my 4th tip is we shouldn't always expect the public to make the hard work to come to us. Sometimes it's really good to go beyond the museum walls and meet the audience where they are, so they can discover us and become excited to then take the step to come towards us. So to help illustrate these 4 tips, I'm going to share with you 4 case studies to help bring them to life. So the first case study I want to share with you is with the National Portrait Gallery. And the National Portrait Gallery had an exhibition opening called Glamour of the Gods, and it was based on the black and white photography of the photographers from the golden age of Hollywood, black and white photos from those eras. And at the time, the National Portrait Gallery had a challenge with their audiences because most of their demographics was an older audience group, primarily retirees. And they really had a very low level of younger audiences coming through their doors. So they invited me in and asked me to hold a late night event in order to attract a fashion-forward young audience who primarily had never been through their doors. So I thought about the audience, and I thought about the exhibition and what the exhibition content was about, being about glamour, and I thought about this fashion-forward audience. And I realized that that audience doesn't necessarily care so much about the techniques and the history and the heritage of the photographers, but what they do care about is dressing and style and fashion and how they construct their image and their identity. So the meaningful connection that I formed as the narrative theme was the construction of image and glamour, and how you can compare that from the past to the present, because the National Portrait Gallery is full of portraits, photographs and paintings to project images of power, construct identity. So I took over the whole of the National Portrait Gallery, and if anyone's been there, it's a very big building with a lot of floors. And I turned it into the NPG film studio. So it was a replica of the Studio Star system. And then we invited the public to come in, and I set a black and white dress code for them to emulate these photographs from the past and the style. And then we had, when they arrived, they were handed an NPG film studio contract. And in the contract, it had a map of the venue, of all the floors. And there were different star-making departments they had to report into as a device to get them to explore different parts of the building. And then the star-making departments were made up of scientists, artists, performers, all examining and doing participatory activities around the idea of the construction of image and identity. I also worked with the communications teams, the press and marketing team, because I have links with brands, and I try to bring in holistic storytelling all the way through and to bring added value and open new relationships with the museums and galleries. So I spoke to Hendrix Gin, which the sponsorship department didn't yet have a relationship with them, and I brought Hendrix Gin in to help supply the drinks. I also formed a sponsorship partnership with Illamasqua makeup brand, which at the time, they were the fastest growing makeup brand in the UK, and they had achieved this only through using social media. They were doing no above-the-line advertising, which meant for the target audience I had been given, this was really critical because they had a very engaged, very edgy, very fashion-forward, large community of followers. So we formed a partnership where we cross-promoted, cross-marketed, and they set up an Illamasqua makeover booth as one of the star-making departments. I also formed a media partnership with Jazz FM, and they did interviews with our artists, our scientists in the lead-up as part of the promotion, and then they did a live link-up for the radio show during the event itself. I also worked with the press department because at the time they didn't really work with influencers and fashion bloggers. So I helped them form a press release and an invite specifically inviting the bloggers and the influencers to come and cover the event. And I also worked with them to create press stories to involve journalists, and we secured very high-profile press coverage as a result. I also brought on board these DJs, the Broken Hearts, because they were DJing at all the leading fashion and style events, and they had a huge social media following as well. So I tried to form as many smart, meaningful collaborations and partnerships that were adding value and building the whole story as one integrated thematic strand for the event. And then I'm just going to share with you one of the rooms. So we created, on the image on the left-hand side, the Vintage Twitter Bureau. So what we did was we filled it with antique typewriters and invited the guests to write in 140 characters or less their most glamorous or scandalous memories. And then we had put hashtags throughout the gallery on the name of the film star. So we had hashtag Marilyn Monroe, hashtag Clark Gable, and then in the bureau we had an actress who was then, we had invited the public to live tweet their questions to these hashtags, to these film stars, and the actress was responding in the character to reply to their questions, and then we projected the tweets above the typewriters so you could watch the tweets and the answers coming in live. And what we wanted to provoke was a questions and discussion around communications, past and present, what has changed, what have we lost, what have we gained within it. And we were constantly, with every department that we had placed throughout the building, we're trying to create stimulus and encourage debate and dialogue of comparing and contrasting past and present. And then at the time, the National Portrait Gallery, the largest attendance they'd had for a public event were 2,000 people. And I kept saying to them, I am going to bring you more people than that. And they were like, no, 2,000, we reckon that's what we're going to get. Well, I managed to get us featured in the Evening Standard, BBC News, all in the week beforehand. Sunday Times Style came down to cover it. We had the live broadcast from Jazz FM. So we completely smashed their public attendance records. The event was going on till 10 o'clock. By 8 o'clock at night, we had reached 5,000. They had to close the gates. They had 800 people still queuing outside to come in. I've only got 5 minutes, so I can only share with you one more case study. So for meaningful connections, so this was one where the neuroscientists from the Max Planck Institute approached us because they wanted to carry out a laboratory experiment to find out the moments when a group of people become synchronized in their movements and what that might say about how different parts of the brain work together. But they realized if they did this in a laboratory setting, the results weren't going to be that realistic, and they wanted to actually do this in a real-world live environment. And at the time, no laboratory experiment had ever been carried out in a real-world environment. So we actually made science history by doing this. So what I did was I partnered the neuroscientists from the Max Planck Institute with a disco club, Car Wash in London, which is the longest-running nightclub in London. And I brought on board the DJ Annie O to create a 1970s and 80s inspired set. And then I ran a press campaign to invite members of the public. So I realized the public, they don't care about the ethical, clinical conditions that a laboratory experiment needs to be carried out in. But what they do care about is music and the chance to dance their way into scientific history. So I ran a press campaign, which was really successful. 100 people of the public came to take part. And when they arrived, we provided them with accessories to help dress them up, and we had makeup artists to add glitter to them, and then the neuroscientists kitted them up with running belts and a smartphone with an app that was monitoring their movements when they speeded up, when they slowed down. And then at the end of the experiment, they could take all of these phones and the apps and study the results, and they would be able to find out if there was a moment when everybody was in perfect synchrony, and which music, which moment in that track did it create that to happen. And so what happened was that they found out 2 tracks were the most synchronous. So one of the tracks was You Can't Hurry Love by the Supremes, and the other one was Wake Me Up Before You Go Go by Wham. But by a cool twist of irony, as if to prove this was a live experiment and we can't fudge the results, the track which had the worst amount of synchronicity was the song Car Wash by Rolls-Royce. And we did make scientific history. The research paper has been published in medical journals, and I managed to secure coverage with the founders on London Live News. Can I talk about this case? Okay. 2 minutes? Okay, so just to show you that this was actually a case that turned digital. It was meant to be a live project. So this was with the Royal Academy of Engineering, and this was about trying to attract young people to become interested in developing a career in engineering. And so what I did was I chose to use the focus of women and diversity in engineering. So I brought together 2 female artists to collaborate with young engineers, particularly women and from diverse backgrounds. And I worked with the global engineering firms Bureau Happold and Mott MacDonald as part of this project. And then what happened with the project was I had also chosen for the artists were going to create installations through their collaborations with the engineers to represent the challenges that London faces as a megacity in 2050 and the engineering solutions that are being developed to counteract that. It's quite complicated, but we called it Megacity London. Halfway through the project, the pandemic started. So this was in 2020, lockdown happened, and we were going to hold it at Peckham Festival, which is in South London, which is a low socioeconomic borough of London, which we also felt was very underserved by science and particularly engineering. And what our aims had been to reach 6,000 people through the festival because it was very popular with families and young people. However, with the pandemic, the festival was cancelled indefinitely. The whole project was in jeopardy. But I'm someone who likes to find opportunity and challenge. So I thought, let's keep going with the project. We're halfway through. So I hard pivoted from it being a live festival, and we took it in ourselves in-house. And I said, let's experiment with making it an online festival instead, which is exactly what we did. So as part of this project to help bring on board young people to become interested in engineering, I also partnered with secondary schools in Southwark and Peckham, also both low socioeconomic groups. And then instead of live workshops with the pupils, the teachers and the engineers, I created online workshops. And during the workshops, the pupils discovered about the engineering, created their own engineering solutions for the future cities, and designed their own districts. And seven groups created 7 districts. And I took the drawings and I commissioned an illustrator and an animator who then redid their drawings and turned them into animations so that all 7 districts could come together as one megacity. And the result was a 7-day online festival. We did a 3-month social media campaign in the lead up. We released content on different platforms each of the days. It also gave us the opportunity to experiment with creating our first podcast series, as well, live Q&As. It helped us develop our YouTube channel, Instagram, all the other platforms. And then the results were better than what we had been originally aiming for, because we'd originally aimed to reach 6,000 live audiences, young people and families primarily. And actually, through our 3-month campaign and week-long online festival, we reached 95,000 digital outreach. Our first podcast series was played, on higher numbers than we'd expected. And even our newsletters were opened at a really great rate. So that's it. Thank you.